and over. Let's go. It's Ferrall. Coast to coast. Steaks, chicks, stacks. You and I are going to make a lot of money. It's Ferrall, coast to coast. It's Ferrall on the bench, coast to coast in the biggest way possible. Hanging out the bad seat of Brooklyn, the bad apple with a bad attitude. We are live in New York City, the Big Apple. Ooh. People dressed in plastic bags, directing traffic, some kind of fashion shake-it-up should be, along with the Tutty and Tater King himself, the founder of the ILC podcast, the rights holder of the Sheet of Integrity, the put it with the golf guru himself, Carver High this afternoon, ladies. Mafia is running it with Robert Anderson. I was the best man at his wedding. The rundown on a terrible towel Tuesday. We got a double shot with Morency from British Columbia coming up from Vancouver this very hour. And then also within the walls of this hour, Mike DeCourcy, the great scribe from the Sporting News, Fox Sports, college basketball, and Big Ten Network college hoops. He's on the take for Indiana. He's at the bottom of the hour. We're looking forward to that. And then in the coup de grace, the final hour of the show today, a double shot with Coach James Young, talking rack, college and pro with him. There is massive action today, Carver High, and I know that you have pieces on some of these games. You've had some level of failure already, and then you are still alive and kicking in others. So what do you got going on? What do we have here? Because I'm watching Notre Dame and Pitt in the ACC on the ACC network. Fascinating development for me that I never knew I had the channel until today. I'm now watching it on the TV in front of me. So I've got that game going. And then the one to follow, I think later, is the Cal Va Tech to follow.
Yes, happy Tuesday here, and I still just chuckling because I can't even picture your Robert Anderson running the show. That just wouldn't be obviously not our run. Our Robert Anderson is going to be fine running the show. Picturing your Robert Anderson try to run the show, I don't know if that would be able to happen, but we move on indeed. Good Tuesday here. Yeah, I got off to a great start today. I had the under in the Oklahoma State Cincinnati game. Fail. I mean, that got smashed. Cincinnati did win 87-68, so they get to move on to tomorrow where they'll lose to Iowa State at the Big 12 championships.
That's right.
Congratulations to the Bearcats there. 25-22, Notre Dame leads Pitt. They just started the second half. I was not in on this game before it started, Scotty, but I was just looking at it at halftime. And you know what? I mean, you know what's going to happen. I think Pitt's going to win, but if I bet Pitt, my Irish are probably going to stick it to me. So I'm going with the Irish here. They're still getting 1.5. They're up 3. Let's take the Irish and have a little fun here down in D.C. for the second half.
Well, they're barely, they're down 3. They're shooting air balls. Their first shot of the second half was a miss by about 8 feet from the wing. So they're barely better than Notre Dame to begin with. Let's face facts. They went 17-14. Notre Dame went 14-17. But remember, Notre Dame coming off a 4 overtime win over the weekend, against Cal or something?
Yes.
All I know is that they have some confidence the last couple of games. They've won their last couple of games, and they're up 5 in this game right now coming out of the break.
Also, starting momentarily in about 5 minutes, actually, is the second game of the day in Kansas City at the Big 12. TCU and Colorado are going to get going. I was a little surprised. I thought, honestly, Scotty, that TCU would be favored by a little bit more than 2.5 because Colorado is horrible this year in the Big 12. Horrible. So 2.5 for the Horned Frogs. They're about to get going. They're horrible. They just are bad. I'm on TCU minus the 2.5. I'll take the bait.
I'm friends with our boy Thad. I wish he had a better team this year, but he doesand.
Your boy Tad Boyle out there in Colorado, Boulder. Tad Boyle, who of course fan of the show. 12-19 this year for the Buffaloes. Not great.
He's so bad this year. I called him Thad.
and you
for Sad.
You get Tad Boyle and Thad Matta.
Constantly
flip through those two.
Constantly.
Get them crossed.
Coaches.
You mentioned Cal and Tech. Virginia Tech will go after this game at the ACC. You've got a bunch of other games which we'll get to later on because we've got some exciting ones. I gotta tell you, I watched a couple of those games last night. Both of those Horizon games. Now, look, the second game, there wasn't a lot of offense. That Youngstown State-Cleveland State game left. It was a rough fight. Youngstown State was a winner, and I went in on Bobby Moe like 2 or 3 times during the game. They were down. Bobby Moe plus 7.5. Bobby Moe money line. Bobby Moe plus 4.5. Just get hammering Bobby Moe, and I thought it was all going to go down the drain, but they rallied to get the win in overtime over Oakland. Let's go, Bobby Moe.
That's great. You got all those different types of tickets on it because they didn't cover the spread. They were laying 3 and a hook. They won by 3 in overtime, but every other ticket you just mentioned would have cashed.
All winners on the live, that's for sure. So you have that tonight, Horizon title game with Bobby Moe and Youngstown State. You've got the CAA title game tonight after UNC Wilmington and Delaware. The Delaware story.
Honestly, we got to talk about that for a second. Now, look, this is one of the worst teams in college basketball. They lost 11 of their last 12 games, and yet they've won 5 games in a row in this tournament. Is that about right, or would this be the 5th game?
This would be the 5th in 5 days. They've won 4 games in 4 days
in the tournament, and now they're playing the best team in the conference, Wilmington, who's 26-7, and they're laying 8.5. Do you take the Blue Hens and the 8.5 the way they are on fire?
I got to tell you, I think they're going to get whacked tonight. I think that Wilmington's going to whack them by 10+. Wilmington's really good. They're a really good basketball team. They always win, it feels like, every other year this conference tournament. I'm going after the Cinderella story. I love stories like this. This is why we love March. We love when you get the 12-16 team that all of a sudden catches fire and has a chance to go to the dance. But I'm going to squash their dreams tonight and take Wilmington to win that game. So, and you have WCC tonight too with Gonzaga and St. Mary's, which of course everybody. But both those big dogs covered last night.
They both covered in the WCC. They did. Pepperdine and the Dons. Unbelievable. Now, how about the Gonzaga, the 2 against the 1, and the 2 is favored by 3 and a hook?
I think it's St. Mary's year, as we'll talk about later. I think this is their year. They're going to win the WCC. I think they're going to get, but Gonzaga finds a way in this thing to usually pull it out. We'll see if they can tonight. So a couple title games. We have other games this evening that we'll get to as well. There'll be a few at the ACC and the Big 12 that we will get to. A few other smaller conferences starting good. We have lots of NFL news that we're going to get to as well. There have been a bunch of trades today. More quarterbacks. Daniel Jones to the Colts. At least he's not going to Pittsburgh. I'll say that to you. At least he's not going to Pittsburgh.
Thank
God.
So you have
that.
At least I don't have to worry about that. I don't know who is, but at least it's not him.
It won't be him as he'll compete with Anthony Richardson. We've got lots of NBA tonight. And from last night to talk about, man, Luka did a lot of crying in that net game. They lost. He was doing a lot. It was like no LeBron, so you got the old Luka, crybaby Luka, at the Barclays Center.
And
that
the Nuggets got revenge on the Thunder in Oak City and whooped their ass.
Yep, another big night for the Joker. When isn't it a big night for the Joker? Honestly, it seems like every single night. So very full plate as we get ready to go here today with lots of live basketball. Live Champions League, too. Champions League coming up at 4 o'clock also.
Wow,
with a bunch of
4 big games that I won't be watching.
Yeah, no, you don't have the Paramount Plus. I can't believe they stuff all those games
I got it upstairs.
I
don't have it here, but I got the ACC network.
I got that cooking too. Let's go Irish.
which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday Inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like, I just don't get how he is still employed. We gotta talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Possible that while every other state is trying to copy New York and get that 51% tax on sports betting, is it possible that New York will actually lower their taxes? That's surprising.
The question is, of course, what sports books could go there? I mean, we're already at 9 that are the biggest ones out there in the market. So, I mean, who are you really missing?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember when everyone was upset about NIL? You know what NIL did? Make sure Cooper Flag wasn't playing with the G League Ignite. That's good for us. That's good for college basketball. When the best players are actually playing college basketball.
You're going to get battle tested. And it doesn't matter, Kevin, if you're at home or on the road. If you don't come ready to play in the SEC, you're going home with an L.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results.
What?
How do you do this once?
Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
You can catch Sports Rage weeknights at 10 Eastern along all of our TV and radio outlets. You catch Morency with us every day on Coast to Coast from Vancouver, BC. And Gabe, yesterday, a big hit for you with Pepperdine. Great bet. And then today, we got games going on all day. So what kind of action do you have brewing on the board?
Yeah, I got to tell you, Scott, that was a backdoor hallelujah miracle with Pepperdine last night. And, like, seriously, they were down by 28, man. They were down by 28 points with about 6 minutes left, and I was getting 20 and a half when it was all said and done. And sort of like expected, Scott, right? I didn't think St. Mary's was going to be up by 30 when they took everybody out. But like I said, they had a quick turnaround. They were playing the early game. Right, you know that they want to get their players off the floor. They're going to start looking ahead to Gonzaga a little bit, and we end up getting the backdoor cover. I did take the Pittsburgh Panthers, Scott, against Notre Dame when they were down. I got them plus 1.5, so I think Pittsburgh were like 4-point favorites. I didn't get in at tip-off. I waited, and when Notre Dame were up by like 5, I jumped in on Pittsburgh. It's not a very good game. They're bad teams. But I think Pittsburgh can grind this thing out and find a way to get it done. I've been pulling the trigger. We hit the over. We love the over of the Gonzaga game last night. It was a little bit stressful early. It ended up getting up to 157, but it still went over the number. And looking at tonight, Scott, great game at the Orleans in Vegas tonight with Gonzaga laying 3.5 to St. Mary's. And I got to tell you, man, that total is just too light, in my opinion, at 138.5. And I don't know about you guys, but this game, Scott, like whoever I was getting points with, I would think long and hard about it, right? Like it used to be, hey, St. Mary's aren't really on Gonzaga's level. Like they're a step below Gonzaga. I don't think this St. Mary's team this year is a step below Gonzaga, Scott, and we're getting 3.5 points. I don't know if it's going to go up to 4, but I like the over more, but I'm leaning with St. Mary's plus the points tonight. Because like I said, if Gonzaga was getting 3.5, I'd take Gonzaga. But I think St. Mary's are good enough, like, for me to be interested and take the points here. I don't think they're outmatched like they were in past years. And in fact, we just saw them beat them like 2 weeks ago.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a great game. And you know what's funny is that they've always owned St. Mary's through the years. I mean, they've literally been their kryptonite. But this St. Mary's team, like Carver High said, is better this year than Gonzaga, despite the records are almost identical. But St. Mary's won 4 more games. Do you think they're better this year than Gonzaga and Mark Few?
I think they're even. I think they're just like evenly matched basketball teams, right? I think before it was always St. Mary's were sort of punching out of their weight class a little bit. This is a much more competitive division right now, or conference, I should say, than it used to be. It used to be Gonzaga and St. Mary's and everybody else. But you see San Francisco can play. Then you had the infusion of the the Pac-2 teams as well, right? So like it's a deeper conference. Santa Clara can play, Scott. They can put points up on the board. And we saw last night, man, the San Francisco Dons. To me, Scott, they're like the new St. Mary's. Where remember before it was like, all right, Gonzaga are getting in the tournament, and St. Mary's, you kind of have to win the tournament or really, really be good to get in. Now Gonzaga and St. Mary's both get in. And now, like, the Dons are right there, bro. Like, the Dons are 24-9, Scott. That's not a bad team. You're 24-9. You played St. Mary's twice. You played Gonzaga 3 times in the season. You're 24-9, and they're not going to make the tournament. It's too bad. Like, the Dons are just right there. Like I said, this conference is getting better and better.
So let's talk about Youngstown State and Bobby Moe in the Horizon Final. Youngstown State got it done yesterday by a bucket, and they were getting 2.5. And Bobby Moe had to rally cap to get it done in overtime, and they didn't cover, but they won. And here they are in the final in Indy.
Yeah, Scott, I bet the over of the Cleveland State Youngstown State game yesterday. And you got to believe it's like that was like I'm amazed that we never find out that these games are being manipulated. Can you get more mobbish than like Cleveland and Youngstown State, Scott? Like,
no.
Like just the whole, what a battle. But we've talked about it, and man, it was an ugly game last night. Youngstown State and Cleveland State was a battle.
Kelly Pavlik probably has money on this game.
yeah, exactly. All the factories and unions and Teamsters, like the Teamster
Pittsburgh
bookies.
and Youngstown, baby. It's an hour apart. That's like a drug. It's like a drug mule path.
Yeah. A lot of bets coming in Youngstown tonight on the home team. And you know what, Scott? Youngstown survived Cleveland State yesterday. Super close game. You saw Robert Morris survived Oakland. Super close game. Once again, man, I'm getting 3.5 points. This Youngstown team can play, and Robert Morris were the favorites coming into this tournament. And as we've discussed, for whatever reason, the favorites never seem to win this tournament. Similar to the top seed hasn't won the ACC tournament since 2018, right? There's a lot of little tweaks like this when you get to these conference tournaments. I'm going to take the points here. Like you said, I think Bobby Moe could survive this and make it to the tournament maybe, but I'm getting, I'm getting 4. It's 3.5, but they got to beat me by 4. I think Youngstown State hang around here, Scott. Give me the points in another Horizon League freaking battle, man. These games are like 1-point games all the time.
Northeast Conference, Central Connecticut laying 10 and a hook to St. Francis of PA. And this Central Connecticut team, they're playing this game up in the East. That game's somewhere in Connecticut. I saw that before. I was looking at where that game was. It's in New Brighton. That's like a home game for them. And, I mean, they're flat out better than this 15 and 17 St. Francis team. Can they cover that wood?
I think they would. I think they will, Scott. Central Connecticut State are one of these teams. If you look at future brackets, people just have them locked in. Like they're just so much better than everybody in this conference. Look for Central Connecticut. I don't like laying 11 points, but I do think they probably win by 13, 14.
Maine and Vermont in the American East semi. Vermont 21-11, Maine 19-13. Vermont, the Catamounts laying 5 and a hook.
Hey, this is the Cats' world, baby, right? But suddenly Bryant have come out of nowhere to be the favorites to win this tournament.
Bryant.
Yeah. But I tell you what, people discounted the Cats. Don't discount the Catamounts. Catamounts win the cover.
Let's go.
which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like I just don't get how he is still employed. We got to talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Possible that while every other state is trying to copy New York and get that 51% tax on sports betting, is it possible that New York will actually lower their taxes? That's surprising.
The question is, of course, what sports books could go there. I mean, we're already at 9 that are the biggest ones out there in the market. So, I mean, who are you really missing?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember when everyone was upset about NIL? You know what NIL did? Make sure Cooper Flag wasn't playing with the G League Ignite. That's good for us. That's good for college basketball, when the best players are actually playing college basketball.
You're going to get battle tested, and it doesn't matter, Kevin, if you're at home or on the road. If you don't come ready to play in the SEC, you're going home with an L.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What?
How do you do this one?
Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
So, getting to the NFL with Morency. So, the story is the Jets still own Aaron Rodgers. They're not going to release him until tomorrow, it doesn't cost them any money. They could have cut him, and it would have cost them dearly against their cap and everything else. So, that's why he hasn't done a deal yet with anyone, is what I'm hearing. And that'll all come to fruition tomorrow when they release him. We saw today Daniel Jones go to the Colts, and Richardson is not going to demand a trade. He's going to compete with him. How do you think that's going to play out? And are you still under the guise that the Steelers will stick with Wilson over Rodgers? Because there's been talk that Rodgers is going to the Steelers, and it's picked up steam.
I'm starting to buy in that Rodgers will end up going to the Steelers, which is just one of those wow type of thoughts. But as far as Daniel Jones is concerned, I think I have a higher opinion than Daniel Jones than some, although I think a lot of people in the football world do like him. If you look at the situation he was in with the New York Giants, it was not a good one. Saquon, let's call it out for what it is, too. Saquon looked better on the Eagles, like surrounded by a bunch of awesome players in the offensive line. He didn't have that Saquon Barkley. Saquon, you saw it, right? Saquon would have, it was kind of people thought it was a disappointment. Oh, I should never have taken a second pick in the draft with him. Did he ever have a wide receiver? Like who was Daniel Jones? Darius Slayton was his top guy because it was his buddy from you know what I mean? They were nobodies, right? That was his buddy. Oh, I made Slayton into something. He never did he have an offensive line? No. How about his coaches that he had? I went through I don't even remember all of them, like Shermer and Joe Judge and dude, it was a freaking disaster train wreck. I always thought that he was kind of a scapegoat. He's not perfect, but he's got talent, man. Like I said, Daniel Jones is going to be the quarterback of the Indianapolis Colts. He's better than Anthony Richardson is, and I like Richardson. Richardson's got a lot of raw talent, but the kid didn't play that much in college, so he's still he's going to make mistakes. And you saw Steichen doesn't have patience for mistakes. So one thing I like about AR, Scott, I don't know if you know this, but people tuning in, you know who took Anthony Richardson under his wing this offseason? Josh Allen.
Is that right?
Yeah. Anthony Richardson is working out and hanging out with Josh Allen, bro. And he said, man, he goes, well, I've learned a lot from Josh already, like just about preparation, like pretty cool. Like Josh Allen said, listen, you got a ton of talent, kid. And people said the same thing about me that you're saying about you. Let's get to work. Pretty cool of Josh. Like they're working out together and stuff. So I think Anthony Richardson, and there's no, last year we saw like a lot of people thought that they treated Richardson unfairly in Indianapolis. He wasn't prepared, Scott. Right? That was the deal. He took himself out of the game because he was tired. That didn't go down very well, obviously.
That was awful.
Remember, he got to the sideline and Steichen's like, what are you doing? Like, what? Coach, I got to come out. Like, what? Dude, like, you're the quarterback. Like, you can't come out. You don't get to come out, right?
Honestly.
So that was a mistake, bro. That was a mistake by him. He thought he was being honest, right? But it was a mistake. There were times I hear Scott that basically just in the film session, they'd throw a question to him. What? Like, you know what I mean? Like, you know what I mean?
Like
it's
you and me in high school.
Yeah, exactly. What's that, Mrs. Smith? I was drawing a Judas Priest logo here. Like, what did you say? Like, you know what I mean? So but the kid's got a ton of talent. But I think Jones. Yeah. This is your painkiller. So I think Jones going to beat him out. I think Richardson. I think another team. My prediction is Richardson will be on another team next year. Somebody else will get it.
Let's go to the Canadians and Canucks and your thought on Garrett Cole having Tommy John.
Wow, just absolutely devastating for the Yankees. Listen, they didn't have him for the first 3 months last year. Yeah, but Lewis Heel surprised everybody last year. You don't have him. You don't have Soto. Stanton's hurt already. I think the Red Sox are the team to beat in that division, personally. I got my bet in. I missed the good odds. I got plus 300 with the Red Sox to win the division. I don't buy into Baltimore. I think they're okay, Baltimore, but I don't think they're great. So I think the Red Sox are the team to beat, as crazy as it sounds suddenly again, in the American League East. And a big game tonight for the Canadians, who are fighting for a playoff spot, and for the Vancouver Canucks, who are fighting for a playoff spot. I feel an over 5.5. I think the total is a little bit late. Let's go over 1.5 goals in the first period of play. Let's go over 5.5, and I think the Canucks get it done tonight.
Canucks at home tonight, getting involved. All right, Morency, have a great show tonight, buddy. Great job.
Which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like, I just don't get how he is still employed. We got to talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Possible that while every other state is trying to copy New York and get that 51% tax on sports betting, is it possible that New York will actually lower their taxes? That's surprising.
The question is, of course, what sports books could go there. I mean, we're already at 9 that are the biggest ones out there in the market. So, I mean, who are you really missing?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember when everyone was upset about NIL? You know what NIL did? Make sure Cooper Flag wasn't playing with the G League Ignite. That's good for us. That's good for college basketball, when the best players are actually playing college basketball.
You're going to get battle tested, and it doesn't matter, Kevin, if you're at home or on the road. If you don't come ready to play in the SEC, you're going home with an L.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this once? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
always love having Mike DeCourcy of the Sporting News on Coast to Coast. You can catch him as well on Fox Sports, college basketball coverage, and the Big Ten Network. He's on the Indiana Hoosiers bandwagon like all of us are. I want to go with, you had talked about in your article heading into the weekend how big some of those games were, and they all panned out. St. John's at the buzzer, the putback for the win. Huge win over Marquette. The Kentucky win at Missouri was very impressive. Arkansas at Bud Walton beat Mississippi State. Alabama won at Neville, which was the biggest win of the weekend. Indiana rallied to beat Ohio State. Florida beat Ole Miss. Oklahoma won in Texas. How is that, any of that, all those things changed anything scenario-wise for the NCAAs, other than I'm guessing from my, own narcissism that Indiana will be at least an 11 seed and get in the way they finished the season, winning 4 of 5 and really having the refs screw them in Eugene with the 21 free throws they gave the Ducks to their 7. They were up 61-60 when the refs started shafting them.
Well, that's a lot to take in. But I think that one of the things that it showed is that weekend, that collection of games showed how precious the 68-team field is and how reckless and foolish it would be to expand it beyond that. Because if you did, Scott, you would be getting North Carolina in, coming off a 1-11 record against quad 1 opponents. You would be getting Wake Forest in, which hasn't beaten anybody good in I can't remember how long. You would be getting Nebraska in, maybe, that didn't honestly even qualify for the Big Ten tournament.
Right.
They were eliminated on the final day from the Big Ten tournament.
And they
by
should have
Iowa,
been.
which went to Nebraska and did a great job, played probably their best game of the year because they wanted to be in the Big Ten tournament. That was kind of an elimination game to get to Indy, and the Hawkeyes got it. And all that would go away if we expand this field anymore. I've said this. There are lots of reasons why I'm opposed to it. But in all honesty, I'm more worried about what it does to the regular season than what it does to the tournament. Because if you look at the tournament, those first 2 days, those first 4 games, they're okay. And if you want to watch them, great. But if you don't want to watch them, it's fine too. Because on Thursday at noon, the action that we've known for 35 years begins. And that's the way the tournament works best. But if you take and add 4 or 8 more teams into the field, you make it so that teams that get in aren't great. And everybody that gets in should be at least close to that.
So it just dilutes the product, and they're letting in teams that wouldn't make it. And obviously, so I want to ask you, just while we're on that same breath, would you expand the college football playoff, have a problem with that from where it is? Because they've already talked about doing that. I don't want to change the basketball tournament at all, but I don't really think they can stop the momentum of changing the football one to make it bigger.
I don't think they need to. I mean, they've only had 1 year. You don't know whether you need to make it bigger, but they're only talking about adding 2 more teams. And so I don't think it changes the dynamic much. I don't like the idea of multiple automatic bids for any conference. I don't think that's wise. I think that you get in if you win your league, and then we figure out from there how many teams you produce that were worthy. And one of the things that's interesting about that is that the Big Ten and SEC, which would both get 4 teams guaranteed in the speculative plan, there have been years when each of them would have had 5. And it's pretty clear that if they went to the multiple automatic bid scenario, that they wouldn't ever get 5. So I think that's a mistake. But taking it from 12 to 14, I don't think it adds anything. I don't think it takes that much away. It's still going to be hard to get in for most teams. And so there would still be that impetus at the end of the year to pay attention to games that you never really cared about before, because the winner was going to the Independence Bowl and the loser was probably going home.
So before I ask you about the SEC, I want to ask you about Bobby Moe tonight. I know you live near there. Would you take the Bobby Moe or Youngstown State? Now, the Penguins are tough. They covered last night. They won by a bucket. They're getting 3.5 from Bobby Moe. Bobby Moe was laying 3.5 last night. They didn't cover, but they rallied to win in overtime by 3. Tonight, they play for the title in the horizon. Who do you like in that game?
Well, I will say this. I would never, ever bet a conference championship game unless one team were dramatically superior to the other. Because you can't guess, you can't imagine how the pressure will impact one team or the other. There was a point in the Furman-Wofford game on Monday night where Furman was just starting to take command of the game. And then the pressure starts to take hold and everything changes. I mean, Wofford could not solve Furman's 1-3-1 zone defense. They were like, what? This is a 1-3-1 here. Take the ball. I don't want it. That's how bad it was.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, Furman took a couple bad shots and the game completely changed. So I wouldn't touch a low spread on something like this. Would I think about Duke or somebody like that in certain circumstances because they're way better? Yes, but not here. But I think that Robert Morris can win the game? I do. But I didn't like the fact that they fell behind so big the night before against Oakland, a team that finished under 500 on the season. I didn't like the fact they did that. So I think they can win. They've played very well lately, but they're starting to get that pressure. When you're the number 1 seed, you're supposed to win. Unless you're dramatically better than the opposition, and that's not the case here. It's a tough call.
So is Wilmington obviously dramatically better than Delaware? Delaware was awful. Wilmington is no joke, but Delaware's on fire in these last 4 days. The Blue Hens of Delaware.
Yeah, they are on quite the roll. I don't trust any team to be that good that many days in a row. I know NC State did it a year ago, but I think Wilmington should take care of business. That's a very good league, and for them to be represented by a team that would be sub 500 would be pretty remarkable. That's not the kind of conference you usually see that out of. Colonial generally produces very high quality basketball teams, and so it would be quite the surprise. I think that UNCW has been among the better teams in the league, not the best, but one of the better teams in that league this year. And it would be I would be honestly shocked if they weren't able to pull off tonight, and probably by a fair margin.
So I was in a game a couple weeks ago, and we were playing a 2-3. And I came in, I subbed in at one point, and they yelled 1-3-1. I went, what? I said, what? We're doing a 1-3-1. I mean, what's next? The boxing one? I was comfortable in the 2-3. All right. How many SEC teams get in? Is it 13 or less?
It's going to be 13. They are pretty secure. Oklahoma put itself in a great position with their game against Texas and winning that one. That I think that one pretty much locked it up that they're going to get 13. Things can happen, but most of the things that could have happened, like the West Coast Conference having a bid steal being someone other than Gonzaga or St. Mary's, that's not a problem. They're both going anyway. It's just a question of which one's the auto and which one's an at-large. We saw Drake take care of their deal on Sunday in the Missouri Valley Conference, another potential at-large team. The only potential bid steals that are out there now are Memphis, if they were to lose in the American, or if there were some shocking result in one of the major conferences. That's pretty much the only chance we have now for bids to come off the board. So someone like Oklahoma, I think, is reasonably safe. If I'm Xavier, they're the team that has to hustle, because right now for most people that's the last team in the field. They got Marquette on Thursday. I think if Xavier could win into the final, I think they'll make the field.
Real quick, can Pitino win the Big East and beat those teams 3 times each?
Yes, you can do that.
Yes.
Which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. We're gonna have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like I just don't get how he is still employed. We got to talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Possible that while every other state is trying to copy New York and get that 51% tax on sports betting, is it possible that New York will actually lower their taxes? That's surprising.
The question is, of course, well, what sports books could go there? I mean, we're already at 9 that are the biggest ones out there in the market. So, I mean, who are you really missing?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember when everyone was upset about NIL? You know what NIL did? Make sure Cooper Flag wasn't playing with the G League Ignite. That's good for us. That's good for college basketball. When the best players are actually playing college basketball.
You're going to get battle tested. And it doesn't matter, Kevin, if you're at home or on the road. If you don't come ready to play in the SEC, you're going home with an L.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
All right, so we go to the NFL free agency tracker. Carver High, as deals kept popping today.
Deals do keep popping today. I did want to, of course, I'm going to keep you updated here. 1 point lead for Notre Dame with 2:49 to go at the ACC, 48-47. And Colorado is out to a 16-15 lead over TCU with just under 7 minutes left in the first half. So the Horned Frogs out to a slow start against the Buffaloes.
They're just not that good to begin with. I mean, TCU sucks as bad as Colorado does. Not quite, but they're on the same plane. I mean, let's just face facts. That's why they're playing each other.
That is precisely why they are playing each other. All right, NFL stuff from today. Of course, we have more free agency deals. We got a trade today, some other offseason moves going on. Let's start with this. Former Steeler now, Najee Harris, to the LA Chargers. 1 year deal, only a 1 year deal for Najee, $9.25 million. I mean, look, not a lot considering what some of the other backs are getting. Did they just, I guess, they just didn't want him back in Pittsburgh? Is that really what it comes down to?
They didn't want to pay him, and he had 1,000 yards every year he was there. They never picked up his option for the 5th year, which was kind of a prelude to a kiss. You knew that it was inevitable they weren't going to bring him back. He wanted to play for the Steelers. They didn't want him, and so he went to the Rams. He got 9.2. I think the Steelers, obviously, they're going to go with what they have, Jalen, right? And then I think they're going to go get Chubb. I think that's the guy that they want from the Browns. There's been talk of that. Let's see if it goes down today or tomorrow, something in that neighborhood, because, you know, the list is getting shorter of who's available.
Right, and they are going to keep Chubb. They slapped that tender on Chubb. I mean, on Warren, which means if anybody wanted to sign Warren,
right,
you know, they'd have to give the second rounder to the Steelers. But you need two backs. You know that everybody needs two backs now because these guys get worn down so quickly. So we'll see if Chubb becomes an opportunity for them down the road. The Vikings have been spending a lot of money. Defensive tackle Jonathan Allen, who Washington released, 3 years, $60 million with Minnesota. Former Colts guard Will Freeze, 5 years, $88 million with Minnesota as well. And I saw they also signed that Javon Hargrave, who was released by the Niners. So bulking up the lines in Minnesota for the Vikings.
I mean, it's smart. There's no denying that. But let's just get real for a second. they have always spent money. They have always stacked their team, and they always lose. I mean, I've never seen anything like it. Like, they have been a perennial failure despite winning all kinds of regular season games, 14 games, 15 games. You know, they're constantly winning games that don't matter. And then they go to the playoffs. What happened? The Giants beat them. They go to the playoffs this year. They lose again. All they do is lose. It doesn't matter who they sign. I mean, like, honestly, how many times? Like, look, we talk about the Bills going 4 times. They went 4 times before that and lost in the Super Bowl. And they've never sniffed it since. And whenever they came close, it was always a disastrous crash landing in the playoffs. So I don't care who they sign. I don't care how much money they make. You know, they can do their skull clap all they want. They never get it done, ever. I mean, just, it must be the weather. It must be the snow and the cold and the tunnels. It's got to be. They're jinxed. They are.
It does get cold up there. There's no denying that. It does get cold up in Minnesota, especially during the winter time.
They never win.
Not the place that you want to be. Elsewhere, the Giants have been spending some money here and there as well on the defensive side of the football. Former Dolphin safety Javon Holland, 3 years, $45 million there. Broncos signed former 49ers linebacker D. Greenlaw, 3 years, $35 million.
Let's look at this. Now, I heard today someone suggest that this was one of the greatest signings of the free agency period here since the window opened. I guess if you like signing guys that blew out their Achilles, like, are you kidding me? Like I said, somebody said, well, what do you think of that signing? I said, well, we'll see how he plays. No one's ever the same after that surgery in any sport ever. That's like, what do I always say on this show? Let's just not discuss Achilles. It's just a bad subject. It just, no one comes back from it and is the same player. He used to be great, and I just don't believe he'll ever be great again. So to me, that was nowhere close to being the biggest signing.
And I'll bring this up now since Greenlaw played for the 49ers because I saw this today, and someone actually tweeted us about it too, and I thought it was great. The Niners have lost 10 players already this offseason. Some big names too, obviously, and on their defense. Greenlaw, Hargrave, Tufanga. They traded Deebo Samuel. They lost Travarius Ward to Indianapolis, Elijah Mitchell, Kyle Juszczyk, Aaron Banks, Malik Collins. Lots of players the Niners lost. Did you see Micah Parsons' tweet about this? When someone said the 49ers are gutting their roster, Parsons tweeted, "No more rookie quarterback. Welcome to reality." Now, look, we've talked about Micah Parsons here in the past, about his podcast and his comments. Could you just shut up? Like, honestly, don't worry about it. We'll make the comments about the 49ers having to lose money. Worry about winning games.
Listen, you know how I feel about him. And I'm just going to say this about the Niners situation with it seems like a bloodletting there. What a shame. I don't know how I'm going to get through the spring or even make it to the Masters with the Niners' entire team leaving. And, you know, last year's season was just so awful. Just to absorb it for me was so difficult to watch them lose every game every week. I've never been able to get over it. I don't know how I'll ever be quite the same again.
You are 1 month away from the Masters, by the way. I think on April 11th is round 2 that Friday. So we're getting very close to the Masters.
Magnolia Lane, let's go.
Yes.
Which is a great place to be. Are you in the locker room? Like, you giving like the Any Given Sunday inches Al Pacino speech? Are we there yet?
Oh yeah, I think we've been there. we're going to have a long talk with Rob today about the 99-199 issue from last week. Like, I just don't get how he is still employed. We got to talk to ownership about that one.
The Smiley Show, only on SportsGrid.
Possible that while every other state is trying to copy New York and get that 51% tax on sports betting, is it possible that New York will actually lower their taxes? That's surprising.
The question is, of course, well, what sports books could go there? I mean, we're already at 9 that are the biggest ones out there in the market. So, I mean, who are you really missing?
Newswire, only on SportsGrid.
Remember when everyone was upset about NIL? You know what NIL did? Make sure Cooper Flagg wasn't playing with the G League Ignite. That's good for us. That's good for college basketball. When the best players are actually playing college basketball.
You're going to get battle tested. And it doesn't matter, Kevin, if you're at home or on the road. If you don't come ready to play in the SEC, you're going home with an L.
Betting above the rim, only on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take.
Ka-ching!
Why? Because of parity.
I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
It looks as though we're going immediately to the Spew newsroom.
We are going to the Spew newsroom because it's funny. You mentioned the Masters as we were going to break.
Never bring up.
And never bring up the bat. And we're a month
Never
away
bring
from
up
the
the
Masters.
Achilles.
And the Masters just got one entry lighter because Tiger Woods won't be playing this year. Tiger Woods won't be playing anywhere this year. That's because he ruptured his left Achilles. This was from
I
his.
tell you, you can't even mention it. You can't even bring the word up. It's just
Yeah.
it's the worst.
As I begin to ramp up my own training and practice at home, I felt a sharp pain in my left Achilles, deemed to be ruptured. He had surgery this morning. Minimally invasive Achilles tendon repair. Surgery went smooth. Back home already, focusing on recovery and rehab. Tiger finished for this year. I mean, look, at this point, it was all
sounds
just
like he didn't tear it. He just
ruptured.
Ruptured. Ruptured sounds worse than a tear.
You'd think so. But
ruptured
it said
is like a ruptured marriage is over.
It says your boy
he's
Doctor Stuck in Palm
Dr.
Beach
Kevorkian.
did the Achilles tendon repair for a ruptured tendon. So ruptured is what he officially calls it. It's all nonsense at this point anyway. I mean, look, we like, it's fun to see him out there, but he's never winning again. I mean, really the only thing we talk about all these majors now with Tiger is, will he actually play on Saturday, Sunday and not drag his leg all over the course?
Right,
I mean,
like,
that's
we
really
always
what
talk
it is.
About him, he can't walk, and like Casey Martin walked better than him. Honestly, and that guy drove a cart. We're not nice on this show, as you know. We are not friendly. But
I'm going to say Daly walks better than him too now. I mean, Daly gets out there in the court.
Drunk. He walks better. So listen, his career's over. I mean, he can't even play simulated golf. He can't. What's he going to do? Limp out there in Jupiter to the monitor and stand in front of the mat and hit into the mat of the simulator machine? I mean, honestly, brilliant, amazing, undeniable, maybe the greatest golfer ever. Fair enough. I just cannot put him ahead of Jack Nicklaus. I just can't do it. Jack Nicklaus won 18 majors. I don't care who he played against. And he also won a major, the Masters, at 46. And no one's ever done that before either. So he was the greatest golfer that ever lived. And I think Tiger, for my money, because of the generations and the years and when it happened and who he golfed against, people would say it's Tiger, but I can't put him ahead of Jack Nicklaus. I just can't do it. And he'll never catch him. And I don't care how many tournaments he won. It's the Bear for me.
I think that you could put this in two different ways, right? I think that Jack was probably was better than him, but I think that Tiger did more for the game. Tiger changed the game more than Jack, just in terms of where the game is at now and the explosion of the game in the last 25 years.
I would argue he's still changing the game, both of them. And I think that Jack is still, at his ripe age, still changing the game with Tiger Woods, who I believe now will, in my view, he's going to design and build golf courses and be very rich.
He will be 50 years old in December, Tiger. He will turn 50 in December.
He's going on 70.
The big 5-0. His body's going on 70. He's turning 50, but his body's going on 70. I don't know if you're watching this. How did Notre Dame win this game? I saw zeros on the clock and 54-54. It looked like they were going to overtime. And then as we were talking about Tiger, I saw Jeff Capel throw his hands in the air a whole bunch of times. And now I see 55-54. So
it was tied, so they must have called a foul.
Must have called a foul.
It was 54-all. They had to have called a foul, and Notre Dame made a free throw because it was 54-all with 33 seconds left and a timeout, and all the Pitt players are crying. They are literally crying, leaving the floor. You know what they should be crying about is their season. They went 17 and 15. Here's what happened. He got fouled on the last shot with 0.5 left. They called the foul, and Notre Dame went to the line, and he hit the free throw, and the game ended.
Unbelievable.
Philadelphia 76ers, they tried to play two different things. They tried to play contender, and they tried to play protect Joel Embiid. It wasn't doing Joel Embiid any good. This goes back to what I've talked about numerous times on this network. Why did they let him play in the first place? Why was he on the Olympic team? I mean, we looked at it last year in the playoffs against the Knicks. The damn kid was on one leg.
Betting above the rim. Only on SportsGrid.
Anyone that's been to a sporting event, the atmosphere before a game, I think Game Time Decisions has that same exact atmosphere. This is our arena. This is what we do. There is going to be an energy to Game Time Decisions that you will feel night in and night out. The excitement you get when you lock your bets in, when you're figuring out what you want to do, we can zone in on the biggest games each night. I want this to be the place that people come to before the games start so they feel as ready as possible to lock in their cards. We are going to hit every single one of those markets that you need to know about. We're going to go through every single thing, and I've got a great team behind me that's going to help me get the job done. There is not going to be a better place, I promise you, than Game Time Decisions to get that new information, react to it, and be able to then bet accordingly. We will have everything at our disposal, and we will use that to our advantage. I'm Kevin Walsh. Tune into Game Time Decisions from 6 to 8 p.m. Eastern on SportsGrid.
The two guys that can do it all.
Too much electricity this morning.
This is a good time. We're having a lot of fun.
I had to do a triple take. Ka-ching! Why? Because of parity. I didn't mean to offend.
Yeah, it's not going to happen.
Load management is a dirty word.
Let him rip.
You know what? Circumstances provide the results. What? How do you do this one? Oh, Donnie, you've got such a good show there.
A network that is booming.
The Early Line. Only on SportsGrid.